mini game here. It's called Change My Mind. So I want to take you back very quickly through the mists of time. The year that Randy Moss arrived in New England to play with Tom Brady, they put together the best offensive season in the history of the sport, and they named Tom Brady the MVP of the league. He was a completely different quarterback with Randy Moss. And my argument then, and it remains, that Randy Moss should have been the MVP of the league because he was the reason for it. The reason that is relevant to me now is that while Lamar Jackson is a two-time MVP, and deservedly so, and proving himself to be one of the great players that we have ever seen, it is my opinion that the Baltimore Ravens, who lead the NFL in offense right now, are going to continue to do that all year long, and that the reason is Derrick Henry. It is my opinion that Derrick Henry right now deserves serious consideration for MVP of the league, considering the fact that he is 18th. He has the 18th shortest odds on ESPN Bet. Let me put some numbers up there to demonstrate just how devastating he has been. He has scored a touchdown in every game this season. He leads the league in rushing yards per game, and the reason we put it that way is because Jordan Mason has played one additional game. By the time their game is over on Sunday, he'll lead the league in rushing. He leads the league in first downs. He leads the league in rushing touchdowns and in total touchdowns. And look at the number at the bottom. They have outrushed their opponents by at least 100 yards in every game they've played this season. The games they've lost, it was because in the fourth quarter, they forgot to give him the ball. They remembered that in time to start winning games, and I don't think they're going to lose any time soon. I know it's something no one will agree with me, but I think Derrick Henry has changed that offense's trajectory, and I think they are the best team in the NFL because of it.
Wow.
Well, I will say this. You're nothing if not convicted.
Go ahead.
But I also love your self-awareness because nobody at this table agrees with you.
Tell me why.
Well, one, because Lamar Jackson has been Lamar Jackson for all of Lamar Jackson's life. And you add a run game with Derrick Henry, and I would say that right now Lamar Jackson helps Derrick Henry be more Derrick Henry than Derrick Henry helps Lamar Jackson be Lamar Jackson. I would also say if you polled 31 other teams and you said if there was one player you could take off of the Baltimore Ravens offense in order to handicap them as much as you possibly could, that person would be Lamar Jackson, but then not Derrick Henry.
I hear you.
I think so. Here's the thing. It's all about how you phrase it, right? It's like when you go to court and you're prosecuting somebody, it's all about what the charge is you're trying to convict him of. If you're trying to tell me he can be the offensive player of the year and he's important to this offense, absolutely. If you're trying to tell me he's the MVP, he got to be the MVP in his own building before he's the MVP of the league.
I understand what you're saying, but then the quarterback is the MVP of every team. What I'm saying is that what Derrick Henry is going to do as this season goes on is going to transform that into an offense that is going to hold up,
and what I'm saying
to fall apart,
the difference
difference
between what Randy Moss did for Tom Brady as opposed to what's happening now in Baltimore was Tom Brady was a totally different quarterback that year than he'd ever been before, and actually than he ever was after. Yeah. That's what Randy Moss did. That's not what Derrick Henry's doing for Lamar Jackson.
I don't even think he's the most valuable running back. I would say it's Saquon Barkley. Where would that team be without Saquon? And when you look at what he's done,
Barkley's team is terrible. What are you talking about?
They would have
best team in the NFL.
Well, a second. Well, Greeny, if the Cincinnati Bengals don't drop a snap, the Bengals are 2-3. So I mean, the Ravens are 2-3. So they're not running away with anything. And to me, like with Barkley averaging 6 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns, and in the passing game, he has additional 12 catches. So to me, if we were building a team, I would take Saquon Barkley over Derrick Henry.
So maybe I should have framed this differently. I'm projecting forward.
Yeah.
I think that Derrick Henry is going to be the reason that Lamar Jackson finally does what he has never been able to do before, and that is win the biggest games at the end because he's the one piece no one can stop.
May well be, but so far they haven't, right? So far they have not been a better fourth quarter team than they were last year, the year before. And I don't know how you can watch that game Sunday and not think Lamar Jackson's MVP. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was unbelievable in that game. Everything.
Lamar
Be
Jackson.
the one person here with some sense.
Well, okay. Well, I'll double down on all the other guys. It's us against you, Green. I have to agree with the team. You talk about 363 yards for Lamar Jackson. Also, and the most important running back that's going to be there is going to be Keaton Mitchell because when they get him back, that element of speed that he has makes him a totally different offense.
Like most geniuses.
You might want to ask EJ Manuel.
I will not be fully appreciated. They've been perfect. Game of the night from the NFC West last night. The 49ers had won 5 straight against the Seahawks as they went head-to-head last night, and it started fast for San Francisco again. It's Brock Purdy, it's Deebo Samuel, and RC. They're not gonna get him.
He elevates for the catch. Julian Love overruns the play, and then Deebo Samuel outruns the defense.
49ers take an early 10-0 lead. And then it continues at 16-3, and then it's George Kittle in the red area. Kittle, 4 straight games with a touchdown reception.
Can we not bury the lead and talk about how perfect this throw is from Brock Purdy? There's nowhere else to throw this football. Puts it in the exact spot that George Kittle needs to get the tutty.
All right, so now it's 23-3, and Seattle desperately needs
Dynamic
a spark.
kickoff, Greeny.
They need it.
This is what they wanted, Greeny. LaVisca Chenault. He fumbled the ball early on in the game. He said he had to get his get back. Gets the ball, returns it. We have a game again in Seattle.
It's 23-10, 8 minutes to go in the fourth. Seahawks are within 6 points. Geno Smith with a chance, but one of his 2 interceptions on his birthday.
This ain't it. It looks like DK Metcalf fades away a little bit on the in route. Geno Smith underthrows it. It's a big pick. This basically seals the game.
Yeah, it does, because that turns into this on a 3rd and 4 inside the 10. It's Kittle again. 9-yard touchdown. Niners up a dozen.
Where's my wife?
They go for the
Where's
2.
my wife?
Go find the wives. They go for the 2. They don't get it. 2 minutes left now. Seahawks 4th and goal from the 9. They have life.
Tyler Lockett still doing big things in a very little body.
29-24. 49ers get it back. Jordan Mason, the league's leading rusher, injured. So in comes Isaac Guerendo, and there he goes.
I can't really even pronounce Guerendo well. And
Yeah, sure, I'm getting down. No, piano on my back.
he was getting down. This is a dude that puts team first, Bart. That's a slide.
So we're
What's
saying
Juszczyk doing?
Juszczyk doesn't.
Juszczyk said, I don't get the ball enough to not score.
He also is the one who didn't know the overtime rule in the Super Bowl, so I'm not convinced he was quite sure. One way or the other, the 49ers win again. Since entering the league, look at this number. Brock Purdy, he has 8 games where he's thrown at least 3 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Give the man.
That's the most in the league in that span, ahead of Josh Allen and Jared Goff. That was the kickoff to Week 6. So let's do a little edition of Fired Up Friday. What are we fired up to see? RC, Lions, Cowboys? What has you fired up for this game?
Will the Dallas Cowboys step up to the physicality of this Lions run game? We know what David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs can do when they have the football in their hands, and also the physicality of the Detroit Lions up front on the offensive line led by Penei Sewell. The Dallas Cowboys have been ran through at AT&T Stadium. Will they step up to the challenge this week?
That may be the glamour game of the weekend. Maybe the best game is Commanders-Ravens. Bart, what has you fired up in this one?
I'm fired up for the battle of the Beltway. Like I said, these teams, they'll party in the same places, you know what I'm saying? Some of the same girls. Winners get the chips. I tell you what, I know that the league sees Jay Daniels as Superman, but the Ravens see him as Clark Kent, because the real Superman is on the other sideline. And listen, most teams don't have the advantage when they try and simulate who Jay Daniels is. That's just a Wednesday practice for the Ravens, baby. They see that offense every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
There's no bias there.
That was a response I wasn't anticipating. Graziano, Bills, Jets, Monday night. What has you fired up?
Put up or shut up time for Aaron Rodgers, man. I mean, look, everything that's happened there this week, he has to start elevating the group around him. He has to deliver on this. We've got to be better. I've got to be better. The accountability thing everybody's been talking about. This is a game they got to win, especially after firing their head coach, making changes to the offensive play calling operation. This is all about Aaron Rodgers, has been for the last 2 years for the Jets. He needs a big game against Buffalo.
Yeah, but let's not even play the sound bites. I mean, we had Jeff Goldberg talking about Rodgers buying into whatever, or at least acknowledging and accepting the decision to demote his sidekick, Nathaniel Hackett, and you got Rodgers taking the blame on himself, which is the right thing to say. If there is one thing that has been noticeable to anyone who has seen that team play, the best example of the disconnect is Garrett Wilson. Anyone who watches football the last 2 years has said Garrett Wilson is on the verge of being a superstar. He has all the makings. And this year he has looked completely disconnected, discombobulated, whatever else the word is. You know that team better than anybody. What the actual heck has gone on with that? What's wrong with that offense, and how are they going to fix it starting this Monday, where I think it is not overstating it to say the season will depend on whether they come out and play big and totally differently on Monday.
The commitment to the run game. right? Because sometimes less.
That's
more.
what's going to solve Garrett Wilson?
Yes, because guess what happens? When you get a great player, sometimes you lean too much on a great player. But last year, they relied on each other. Like Breece Hall did not forget how to run the football, but you have to have a commitment for that. Sometimes we look for great players to bail us out. You've been around that. Whenever you lose a great player, you guys rally around each other. If Troy went down, the bottom didn't fall out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Guys stepped up, right? So I think they lean too much. No quarterback in the league, I don't care Aaron Rodgers or not, should be throwing the ball over 50 times a game, especially in a close football game that you have an opportunity to win. Garrett Wilson is still a great quarterback, but adjusting to Aaron Rodgers and the way they do things have developed slower than they thought, and that's because they don't have the time. Maybe you're right, Tannenbaum. They should have played in the preseason, not because they could risk Aaron Rodgers, but to get some chemistry and learn how he likes to do things.
Greeny, I think Bart's right. I think the best way to help Garrett Wilson is to put those two backs on the field together, make Buffalo defend the run, and then throw it over their head to Garrett Wilson. And if you look at Todd Downing and what his DNA is, that's exactly who he is. So I think sometimes it's easier to make that change. I experienced that in 2015 with the Miami Dolphins. Dan Campbell came in. We elevated Zach Taylor and Ben Johnson. We were a totally different team the week later.
Who was your quarterback?
Ryan Tannehill.
And the Jets have Aaron Rodgers. Listen, RC, here's the bottom line of it. I hear what they're saying. I've watched every snap of every game. They run the ball on first down every single time. And it's 2nd and 11 every single time. So it's one thing to say we need to run the ball more. They can't run the ball at all. What solves that problem?
What's crazy to me is that these two former Jets are saying, take the football out of Aaron Rodgers' hands helps Garrett Wilson. Taking the football out of Aaron Rodgers' hands helps the team. This kid is a superstar. This kid is a top 5 wide receiver. He's a top tier player. He's not that. I also know that Garrett Wilson was running butt, booty, wide, open at the end of this game, and all Aaron Rodgers got to do is put it on him. One of the best in the world when it's time, when it's critical football moments, just make a play. I know the next play, he threw the football to Stephon Gilmore. He sure knew how to get it to him. And so what we're saying is that Aaron Rodgers, who is all of these things, who Greeny has built his entire last 2 off seasons around, ain't Aaron Rodgers. Or if he's Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers ain't that. And that's a problem, because when you say this is your organization, when you say you can miss minicamp if you want to, when you say you can bring in your coach, not only your coach, but the guy that you're a godfather to his children is in Randall Cobb. You're going to bring in Alan Lazard. We're going to give you all of these things to make life perfect for you, because if we make life perfect for you, we get the best you, and this is the best you. So much so y'all saying take it out of his hands? Come on, bro. It's his fault. He's the reason this team is bad.
I love your passion, and it doesn't make you right. Because Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, they run the ball, and it's a commitment to the ball. Not because Patrick Mahomes couldn't kill teams by throwing the ball 52 times, but the Jets have become predictable. They become predictable, and they're worse in the league in play-action pass, because you can't have play-action if you ain't got no action. You need the linebackers to step up.
Let me get Graziano in. I have a rebuttal, but let me hear it.
Kansas City has the best offensive play caller maybe ever.
And he calls runs.
But he has free reign. So what I want to know is how much is the offense going to be allowed to change, right? You talk about Todd Downing when he had Derrick Henry in Tennessee. Of course he ran the ball. He had Derrick Henry. But he also didn't have a quarterback who had very specific demands about how things were supposed to run and how they weren't pre-snap. Look, if Aaron Rodgers is really going to buy in and let there be changes, great, because right now he is not helping, he's not elevating them, but what's worse is if he is an obstacle, right? If they're not able to change on offense the way they need to because he only wants to play a certain way, then I don't think it works. So I'm fascinated to see how much change they're actually allowed to make around him.
Like I said, I'm over there in that facility every Wednesday, right? I'm there every day. I've interviewed Aaron Rodgers. Nobody loves ball like Aaron Rodgers. I thought he's playing because he loves football and he loves the preparation. Listen, he is not a selfish guy. He is not a guy when it comes to football and his team. He's not concerned with how many yards he throws for. He came to the Jets for one reason, so he can submit his legacy. And the only way he can submit his legacy is by winning a championship. And if that calls for him to hand the ball off 50 times, I don't think you have any
right now, what's his legacy?
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about committing to handing it off. I'm talking about designing a more creative and deceptive run game than they have.
Well, you're talking shifts and motions, right? Which is something
but he doesn't like it.
Right, but I think he's open to anything. Right. Because he has to, because his legacy is more important.
I think it's exciting to see.
You ask me what his legacy is, right? I think his legacy is a great player that we look at his talent and say, if this guy is so great, like Kyrie Irving, like, why does this guy, if he's got this much talent, why does he only have one Super Bowl?
Right.
That's his legacy. He's a guy that you expect more when you look at the talent, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the history of football, but that doesn't always equate to the greatest winner in football. So he's trying to change that narrative, because if he's able to pull this off, it puts him up there even with Peyton Manning, or even a greater than Peyton Manning, because he lifted a worse organization than Peyton did.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. Right now, it's going so badly.
But
They just fired the coach 5 games into the
season. It goes bad like that sometimes.
But
Do you remember the first time we saw Peyton Manning in the Denver jersey? That night against the Ravens?
I think it's
Do you remember
7
that?
touchdowns.
Yeah.
He lost his mind.
Yeah, but I remember the second year, too, when he was a shell of himself.
Right. And that's, to me, like,
The second year, it was the fourth year.
they won a
Go
Super
ahead.
Bowl.
yeah, Greeny, that's my point, though. Like, if someone's sitting down with Aaron Rodgers in that building and having an authentic conversation, is we can win with you as a diminished skilled player at 40, but here's how we're going to do it. And when Peyton Manning won that championship in Denver, Von Miller by far was their best player. And to me, they can win, especially in the AFC East this year. But you have to change, and we have to change how we approach
Mike
it.
T, do you think Aaron Rodgers believes he's a diminished football player?
He knows
That's
he's
a
not
fair
what
question.
he knows what he's not what he was. His
I
body
think-
tells him that.
Can I say one thing? I think that the place that I disagree with you is they're not running the ball because Rodgers is telling them not to. They're not running because they can't.
Right.
They're unable. They try.
Right.
Because
They
the defense
actually
knows
do
what they're
try.
going to do.
Right, because
so predictable.
they're run blitzing them. That's why, right?
Right.
Because they're predictable.
So what do you do? You're a football
Okay.
player. What should they be doing that they're not?
You have to break your tendencies, right? Because everybody knows.
And
what
why
the
aren't
tendencies-
they?
Well, because
you gotta
Nathaniel
self-scout.
Hackett is doing what Aaron
Stubbornness.
Rodgers wants to do, and Nathaniel Hackett's doing what he's always done with Aaron Rodgers without having those pieces. Will Todd Downing be able to say, we want to get under center, we want to get in eye backs, we want to use motion, we
Run
want
out
to
of three
use
wides,
shifts?
which
Will
they
he
don't
do
do.
those things?
And can you learn to do those things in 5
It's
days?
easy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's easy. It's in the
Listen,
playbook.
didn't we see that happen with Josh Allen?
Yeah,
we
but-
saw that happen just last year, and they took off.
Okay, I'm all for it.
Don't give up, Greeny. Don't buy into what they're trying to do.
Man, Greeny-
Dan is rubbing off on you. He's like
Did
a
you see
bad
how long?
apple.